Greetings everyone, I'm Endcards, and welcome to the technical showcase of Snapshot 4B for the More Mobs datapack. If you have not yet seen it, please go watch the main Snapshot video first. Otherwise you'll be confused at what I'm talking about here, and I will try my best to go in the same order as the original video. So without further ado, let's get into all the technical changes. The first one I wanted to mention isn't really major, but since the button was removed on the panel, it also meant that the box's function also ceased to exist. Of course, you can use better functions to get items now, and that's really all I wanted to say about that. So Ash, unfortunately you cannot convert Ash into the new item, but you can use it, you can craft it into bone blocks, or you just use the item itself. It's not really that big of a deal. What you can convert though is the Cavecreep Head. So you can use whatever current Cavecreep heads you have, but if you place them into your world and break them, they will lose their NBT data, or should I say part of it, so they wouldn't actually retain their proper name, because I don't want to support old items as it would add to performance. So rather than doing that, I suggest you drop your Cavecreep heads on the ground and convert them to the new ones. Now the spawning system, as it's become kind of a tradition, it's been rewritten again. This time it hasn't been changed that radically, but it does have some big changes. The main one that I really wanted to mention is that the biomes part of the spawning system has been moved. When before in the previous snapshot, the system would first check for the dimension and then the biome. Before looking for conditions to spawn specific mobs, it'll now skip the biome part. Instead, it will just find a dimension and then go straight to the entity. And from the entity, it will check for conditions to spawn custom mobs. That's not the only change, but the other ones are pretty minor, stuff like optimization and so on. This is really the big one. Anyways, let's carry on. The behavior has been optimized a lot for the mobs, specifically for multi-entity mobs such as the Flaming Tarantula. Now it'll actually run most of the commands from separate sub-functions for each type entity, so the Hunch will have its own function and other sub-functions, while the Tarantula body has its own set of functions that it runs separately, and that optimized the performance a great ton. It's most noticeable after you spawn a lot of these mobs, then you can really tell the difference. So I mentioned that this pack is now compatible with Creatures++. What was happening before is that people complained to me that my mobs were replacing the Creatures++ mobs, so I decided to change it. And I'm not actually even sure that the Creatures++ datapack is up to date at this point, but if it ever will be, my pack should be compatible with it. Basically what happens is that the Creatures++ entities, they don't even get processed by my spawning system. Now let's talk about the Zombified Piglin jockey spawn spam. What happened in the previous snapshot is that if a Zombified Piglin would spawn riding a Strider, as you know, the old spawning rules mandated it that they would be replaced with fumes. For some reason it didn't work that well with jockeys, and instead it would spawn a lot of fumes at once. So that was a big issue that was fixed in the snapshot, because Zombified Piglins aren't even used to spawn fumes anymore, so that was fixed. Now let's continue talking about spawning. Basically what I meant by zombies are no longer replaced by miners, and then miners are no longer replaced with cave spiders. What I meant was that the miners that spawn naturally will be replaced by cave spiders, but the miners that were spawned by the zombies would not be replaceable. It was a confusing and convoluted way to spawn mobs, so I just decided to change it. Now for the Cyclops spawning underground, it's quite a rare occurrence, but I've seen it happen because zombies spawn on the ground, and you can see sometimes they are chicken jockeys. Therefore, there was a very tiny chance that the chicken would be converted into a Cyclops, so that was fixed. Now miners no longer spawn in self-locating. What that meant is that earlier spiders would just be replaced with miners underground even if there wasn't enough space. Now it'll no longer happen. Now the Piglin Rider. This mob is basically like the Piglin Brood, except it has the same strength and health as a regular Piglin. It also has the Piglin loot table, which doesn't mean anything for vanilla, but as you know, my other datapack, Overskip, adds a loot table for Piglins. Therefore, they would drop the same items as they would in that datapack if it was enabled. And the major differences between brutes and piglins, aside from these changed properties, is that they will never barter and they will never be afraid of Zombified Piglins or Soulfire blocks. That also includes hunting for hoglins, so it will basically be like a Piglin brute, except it has the same strength as a regular Piglin. Now, baby Affrays. Well, baby Affrays spawn with an age that around an infant would spawn, so they would take a little bit to grow up, but they eventually do grow up even if they are on the back of a parent. And baby Affrays are similar to baby Hoglins in the way that if you hit them, they'll run away scared, but very different from Hoglins, it doesn't last very long, it's quite short actually, so it'll come back fighting you. Now I mentioned that the Wither Skeleton Horse now is faster on soul blocks, just like the Affray, except that the Affray has a much larger level of the soul speed enchantment equipped compared to the Wither Skeleton Horse. It is just soul speed of level 3. Now Cavecreep Explosions, the radius has changed to 3 from 5. Now the Prisoner Ghost AI, that might have sounded strange if you didn't understand that the Prisoner Ghost is a multi-entity mob. So when you try to change the AI of the Prisoner, it would still continue moving because it's comprised of 2 entities actually. So what this change does is that when you change one of their AIs, it applies to the whole mob and not just one of the entities. Now Wanderers now take damage in water, but as you can see they would teleport really quickly up. Now the Bane of Arthropods enchantment. Interesting fact, it was actually also applied to the Flaming Tarantula hunch, but it didn't really change anything. Technically it's still in the pack, but it doesn't really change unfortunately anything. And it's not really my fault, but I might look into this later and I'll have to change some stuff about the Flaming Tarantula to make it work properly. But it does work on Martyrs, and as you could see in the video, even a wooden sword with a high level of Bane of Arthropods would do a lot of damage to the Martyr. In fact, with Bane of Arthropods 5, you can one-shot the Martyr, even with a wooden sword. It pretty much doesn't matter what kind of sword you use, as far as the enchantment level for Bane of Arthropods is high. Now the Martyr has 2 types of avoidable blocks, really hot blocks and not so hot blocks, which include all the blocks showed in the video, and the very hot ones are magma blocks and lava, which will make them jump much higher in the air. Now pickpicking. Pickpicking is an advancement that is granted for both giving a netherite pickaxe to a miner and a diamond pickaxe to a miner. So you can actually skip giving it a diamond pickaxe and instead just give it a netherite one straight away to get both advancements at once. And about the miner loot table. The drops will be smelt if the miner died while on fire. What you need to remember is that even if it was holding a Silk Touch pickaxe, you can give it one or it can spawn naturally with the Silk Touch pickaxe. It'll still drop the smelt ingots because when you smelt the ore blocks, it's the same as smelting the raw ores. So the spider conversion and the Flaming Tarantula hunch regrowth processes are irreversible, which means once they start ticking, they will not stop. They will pause if they go into a different biome, but the count itself would not stop. Whatever progress it has made in its transformation would be kept, and if it returns to a Crimson Forest, it will continue from the same place where it left off. Also, I mentioned that the hunchless Flaming Tarantulas now display spore and small flame particles. It's not a big deal, but it does display smaller flame particles compared to the ones that have a hunch, and the Crimson Spore particles come out of its back. Now the Dragon Phantom mob, since it has a new name, the old mob either had to be converted or left alone, and I decided to leave it alone because it's not really a big mob that you wanted to keep around. So if you still have Ender Phantoms in your world, they won't work anymore, but the items that they dropped, for example the old Ender Phantom wings, should still work the same way as Phantom Membranes, however they will not have their texture. And the same is true of the spawner frame, however the spawn frame doesn't actually work. So you need to get a new spawn frame, but it's not really a big deal. Now the sounds that you heard for the Dragon Phantom are the ones that they make at size 15. At size 20 the pitch is deeper, and at lesser sizes, as you could have guessed, the pitches are higher. It also plays its sound in a 35 block radius, except for the bite sounds. Those are played at a 15 block radius. And in the video I reported that the sizes are 5, 10, 15 and 20. In reality, in the code, the sizes are 4, 9, 14 and 19. But as you know, in programming the numbers actually start with a 0, so technically it is 15, 20, 10 and 5. Now there was a bug with the Dragon Phantom before, as it would teleport away from the player even if it wasn't damaging it, so you could see a Dragon Phantom approaching you and then you may be taking the damage from an Ender Sentinel or from poison or whatever else, and then it would just teleport away even if it's not supposed to. It was supposed to teleport after biting you, not when you took damage from a different source, so that was fixed. Also, they will no longer teleport to the nether roof now. In the previous versions, if they teleported randomly in the nether dimension, they would always end up on the roof, so that's been fixed. Now they have a cap at the Y value to which they can teleport away. Now, I was talking about the Phantom Eyes texture being removed. If you didn't know what that is the emissive texture, the same ones that spiders and endermen have, the ones that also glow squids use. It gives the appearance of glowing, so that's what's called emissive in Minecraft, and that's the texture that I removed because it was clashing with more mobs, creatures such as the Ender Phantom, the Dragon Phantom now, and the Ash Ring. Unfortunately, the bug is still unfixed as far as I know, and I've tried to get this bug fixed for a while. I reported it like months ago, and as far as I remember, it's still not fixed. So I just decided to remove the texture, and if it doesn't end up getting fixed, I will of course bring the Phantom Eyes back. Now, the advancements. You could see that some of them have new names, but functionally they actually have the same names. It's just the names that are different in the language files of the datapack. But the advancement files and description and title parameters for the advancements themselves are actually the same. Now, about the Totem of Avoidance bug. I accidentally put in the wrong value, and therefore it created this bug. When it was supposed to just check in which hand you have your totem, it would instead check for a different totem, so that had to be fixed. And also some of the code for the totems, and specifically the detection for them, has changed and improved. And I also mentioned that the fire resistant mobs will no longer appear on fire unless they're in lava or dying, which is because that's how the visual fire parameter works, the one that they added recently in 1.17. And unfortunately I cannot fix it, at least to my knowledge. And that really wraps up this video. Hope you find this video interesting and informative, and that's really it. Thank you for watching, don't forget to smash subscribe, ring my bell, and as always, stay.